Chapter 5. An Honest Living. Fading in, we're greeted to an indoor batting center. Nishiki is hitting balls as Kiryu watches on from behind the fence. He asks if we're finally decided to work with Tachibana, and we confirm his suspicions. We're officially a real estate agent now. We continue to explain that they're going to help us clear our name from the murder investigation. Our name has already been brought up by police since our prints were found on the dead body in the empty lot. Thankfully, Tachibana has some influence over the police force, meaning their search for us will be slowed, though he can't stop them completely. If we can't find the real killer in 2 to 3 days, we won't be able to walk the streets safely. In exchange for him helping us, we have to work as a real estate agent until we can find the murderer. We weren't really in a position to say no. Nishiki is confused, but we continue to explain that we're working with one of Tachibana's top men to learn the ropes and that we're meeting up with him soon. Before we can do that, we need to freshen up our style. Nishiki catches on that the reason we asked him here was to help us pick out some new clothes, something less thuggy. He gladly accepts the information, and we dampen his expectations of what's required. Heading outside the batting center, we explain that we don't have a lot of time to get a suit from somewhere else, and we have to get it in Kamurocho. Even though it limits our options, Nishiki still remembers a place that would be perfect for us. It's not high-end, but it can look good enough for a good price. Accepting that, we run on to buy clothes. Finding some of the clothes boring, we search through, not wanting to look broke, until we find the ultimate fit. We enjoy it, but Nishiki can't hold back his laughter. Disregarding his reaction, we decide to get the suit. Nishiki questions it, but gives in soon after. With that, we thank him for helping us, and he offers a warning to be careful. Kuze is dead set on killing us. With this, he leaves, and we move on to Cafe Alps to meet with Oda. We greet Oda outside the cafe. He chastises us for not using a proper address towards a superior, then mocks our outfit. We say he's calling the kettle black, and he didn't notice he was until now. He hands over a pair of fake glasses, then briefs us on who we're meeting. He's an old man who's too rich for his own good. We have to deal with a squatter. We're not going to be able to use force since there are strict laws against it as a civilian. Our client wants us to settle this as cheap as possible. With the brief info dump done, Oda hands us our own business cards, and we head inside to await his arrival. Entering, we choose to sit in the far back of the cafe, with our seat facing away from the door. We equate the business world to the Yakuza world after Oda compliments us. We refuse a drink and wait for our client. After a short while, Yamanoi enters. He comes up to meet Oda, whom he knows well, and asks who we are. Oda says we're a new hire here to help, and we hand Yamanoi our business card. Oda praises us again, and we feel all warm and fuzzy in our stomach. He does, however, point out that we handed the business card upside down. At least he cuts us some slack. Yamanoi is nice to us, and we get down to business. Addressing what's going on, we learn that Yamanoi bought the property at auction a month ago, and the squatter sneaked in just before that. We find out it's a homeless man named Suji who's squatting. He hasn't asked for a sum of money to get out yet, and Yamanoi would rather we do the negotiations instead. He says his budget to get rid of him is around 5 million yen. We're taken aback and say we wouldn't give them a damn thing. Yamanoi expresses his worry that the squatter is working with the Yakuza. Oda speaks up and says we're an expert at handling them. He calls us an otaku and our self-esteem is shattered. The man wants to give us compensation for when the job is done, but Tachibana informed Oda to not take any pay for the situation, solving his repayment for the previous kindness from Yamanoi. He praises our company. We learn where the building in question is and say we'll handle it all before ending the conversation and leaving. Outside of the cafe, Oda tells us he'll take the lead and wants us to use this as a learning experience. Before we meet with the squatter, Oda instructs us to pick up a confection box to follow basic business etiquette. With that, he says we'll rendezvous at the Sakuta building and heads off to let us do our thing. We quickly pick up the box from the store and head straight to Oda. Meeting up at Squatter Central, Oda says we're good to go, and we head on up to solve our problem. Reaching the room, we knock on the door and ask for Suji. He answers, and we both hand over our business cards, exclaiming we're from Tachibana Real Estate. Handing over the confections, we barge into the room. We mention how the room is dirty and is going to take a lot to clean when he moves out. Not catching on, he asks what we're talking about. We get to the chase and say he's overstaying his welcome. Suji brings up civil law and threatens to take us to court. Oda tells him to chill and that we'd pay him to leave. He gets upset that we think money will solve everything. We continue trying to convince him to just give it up. He tells us to fuck off and bring the owner. In return, Oda tells him to bring out the Yakuza he's working for. He acts dumb, but we see right through him. Oda gets very aggressive and says he's not worth the owner's time. We leave him with the message that Tachibana Real Estate is on the case. Outside, Oda says it went as well as it could, and we joke with him, asking where his politeness went. He tells us there's a time and place for everything, but he was just scum, not the actual people we're dealing with. We ask if he means the Yakuza, and he confirms. He knows they're just in it for the money, and he plans on solving the problem. As we talk, we're approached by a group of shady men. We question who they are, and Oda calls us stupid, saying they're the Yakuza we need to negotiate with. They ask for 7 million yen in exchange for getting the squatter out. They say we're both making easy money, but Oda replies that they're not gonna get any of ours. They ponder why, and we let them know that we're gonna fuck them up if they don't talk to him. Replying with a good fuck that, they retort that 10 million yen flat will save our lives and get rid of the squatter. We beat them half to death in response. Defeated, he tries to intimidate us by saying he'll remember our faces. As we ask for his clan, he tells us he's part of the Taihi Association of the Tojo clan. That means he works under the Dojima family lieutenant, Hiroki Iwano. The bean Yakuza says we fucked up and are dead men walking before running away. Oda knew this was gonna happen eventually, ever since Tachibana Real Estate went after the empty lot. Tsuji the squatter emerges from the building terrified. Oda tells him if he sticks around, he can get fucked up too. We give him until tomorrow morning to be out of the room. If we catch him thereafter, there's no telling what we might do. With that, he runs off in a hurry. After the kerfuffle is concluded, Oda tells us we did a good job and asks how it was for us, and that we should feel good finally getting thanks. We reply that it doesn't really matter to us. Wondering if we're gonna go back to the Yakuza after we help Tachibana, Oda questions us. We say we honestly haven't thought about it yet. Now that the squatter is dealt with, we're ordered to go back and report to our client, then head to Serena to meet back up with Oda. He says that it's gonna be for us to chill out, not to talk about something business related. In turn, we go to Mockbowl and report to Yamanoi alone. Agreeing, we set off. On our way there, we run into a man named the Leisure King. He and another man are talking about fucking over Yamanoi and using it as bragging rights with the group called the 5 Billionaires. Walking by, he bumps into us. His friend gets angry at us for some reason, but he tells his homie to back off, saying he's already hit his victim quota. He loosely threatens us, then scanters off. Marching onward, we find Yamanoi looking injured in front of Mockbowl. He asks if we had any trouble with the situation, and we let him know we didn't. More importantly, we check to see if he's alright. He says he'll be okay, as long as we take him back to the building. We escort him there immediately. As we arrive, we talk for a while before he offers us his office, and introduces us to a side plot that I'm not covering in this series. As we finally move on from that tutorial, we make our way to Serena to meet up with Oda. We enter the bar to be greeted by the mama, who recognizes us as a new visitor. Looking around, we find Nishiki at the bar, but Oda is nowhere to be found. He greets us and Mama lights up after finding out where Kiryu Kazuma that Nishiki has been talking about. From this, we find out her name is Reina. Nishiki tells us to sit down next to him. We order a drink. Reina mentions she wants to meet Nishiki's lover, Yumi-chan. He says he's trying to get her a job as a hostess. We question it and get called old by Reina in return. Nishiki questions why Oda is taking so long. We shoot the shit a bit more before Reina brings up that we should do some karaoke. We proceed to rock the mic. As we finish, Nishiki mentions how late Oda is once again. Reina hopes that he'll be alright and unharmed. As if she were a bad omen, Oda comes in soon after, dripping blood and limping. Before we can ask what happened, Awano walks in with a group of lackeys in tow. We greet him. Nishiki tries to react, but Awano shuts him down immediately. He shows us the same business card we gave the squatter, saying we've been a real pain in the ass. Awano expresses contentment towards us for leaving the family, then immediately joining Tachibana after. Behind him is Akabe, the Yakuza behind the squatter plan. Since it failed, we see he lost his pinky. Nishiki speaks up and gets his nose smashed for doing so. We tell him to back off since he has no part in this. Another goon speaks up and says he wants to gut us, so Wano agrees but tells him to do it outside. With that, we march outside to fight a group of gangsters, and Awano stays inside with Nishiki and Reina. As we get outside, we're told that we got in the way of their jobs and we should be on our hands and knees begging. We tell him to fuck off and to fight us. He questions why we want to do this and stands up to taunt us. He tells us if we swing that things won't go well. He mocks our friends as the last straw and we deck him hard. With that, we start the fight. After we take them down with ease, Awano makes his way outside with us. He says we're more Yakuza now than ever before. We ask if he wants some too, and he says to go for it. As we swing, Awano catches our fist in the air. He doesn't really want to fight us. He just wants to know why we've teamed up with Tachibana Real Estate. He thinks it's Captain Kazuma's orders that we're listening to. From his perspective, it seems that Kazuma is using Tachibana Real Estate to go after the empty lot. We keep the answer ambiguous. He asks if Tachibana has found the lot's owner yet. We refuse to say a word, but he reads our face like a book. He now wants us to set him up a meeting with Tachibana. We reply that since we've lost a family, we have no reason to help him now. Awano tries to bargain that if we do this, he'll forget about the squatter fiasco and that Kazuma and us tried to make a move on the lot. If we don't do this, he says every single person under the Dojima family name would be after us. He'll come after us, no matter what. And when we die, he'll come for everyone else close to us. We're unfazed and tell him to do his best. Awano lets us know that he'll come right after Nishiki too. We ask what he'd do if he met with Tachibana anyway. He lets us know that he's going to beat all the info out of him, then turn him into an example. We're then given an ultimatum. We can either hand over Tachibana or die in his place. We have until later tonight to decide. He walks off as the screen fades to black.